Does it work? Are we live? That's what they say. Welcome to the Witchy Show. Fucking horrible place to be. I have to make sure this shit's working. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. Go to your channel. Go to your channel. Oh, it is working. Okay, good. Enough of that nonsense. Okay, we've got topics to discuss today. I don't give a fuck if no one shows up because you bitches will see this later. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 topics. We have 9 topics to get through, and I'd like to get this shit done in an hour. So let's get through this shit together, okay? Let's vape. Let's pray somebody shows up and cares about the shit we're talking about. I'm pretending to be relevant on the internet. I'm pretending like people know who I am. No one knows who I am. Our first topic. See, we have topics. Tips for magic when starting out with the craft. Okay, you're new. What the fuck do? You've been reading books. I don't give a fuck what you've been reading, but you've been reading books. You've been watching videos. You have been on social media platforms. You have been just absorbing everything and its mother's testicle into your brains. Okay, you're just like, I understand something, but I don't know what to do. What do I do? How do I be a witch? I see this person on the internet do it this way. I see this person on the internet do it this way. And I see this person on the internet do it that way. How do I, where do I, what do I do? I'm going to stop you. First, you're going to learn Wicca. You're like, you don't like Wicca. I don't. I fucking hate Wicca. I hate everything that is Wicca. Okay, I do. I truly do. I honestly do in my bones. But it is the best foundations for you to learn the craft. You're going to learn what a spell is. You're going to learn what an altar is. You're going to learn the basics of a god and goddess. You're going to learn basics of herbology and crystals and all of that stuff. You're going to learn the basics of making an incense, of a potion. Like, you're going to learn witchcraft. You're going to learn Wicca. Okay, it is structured. And that is, I think, what a lot of people need. They need structure when starting out on something like this. Because think about it, when you're a new Christian, right? What do they tell you to do? Go get baptized. Well, that's fucking easy. You just go to the church and they say some words and dunk your head underwater or pour water on your head. I don't know how they do it these days. Sometimes they drown you in a river. Who doesn't want to be drowned in a river? Drown me in a river, daddy. Right? So there's structure to starting out on a new religion when you're joining a religion or joining a cult even. There's structure. There's a process. But it seems that when people go to learn witchcraft, there's no structure for them to follow. Or they start reading something, like they'll start reading a Scott Cunningham book or whatever, and they're like, okay, I've done everything in this book. What do I do? Right? So you need Wicca because Wicca is structure, and structure helps you organize your thoughts, your processes, develop habits and ways of doing things that either follow the book or don't follow the book. And the Buckland's Blue Book for Wicca is probably the best book that you're going to find out there in terms of giving you that structure. I like the Scott Cunningham books, but I feel like those one-off Wicca books or like those little series like, I don't know, Living Wicca, and then there's like Solitary Wicca and stuff like that, right? Like, you either got to buy them as the series, because buying them as one-off can teach you, like Living Wicca taught me a lot, but it was more of not an instruction and more of an educational resource on how, not even how, but like why things are done, or how, like the description of things as opposed to the steps. But there were kind of steps in there on like setting up an altar or like doing a ritual, right? And so that would be my first tip, is to go down the Wiccan path. That's what you need. You need that structure. You need to go down that path. Because like I said before, it's going to teach you all of the things that you are looking for when you're coming to the path. Because when we come to the path, we see YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook groups. And like I said before, everybody and their mother's dog has 22 different ways of practicing the craft in any given day. And if you're somebody who's new and you're coming in and you're like seeing all of this, it can be very overwhelming. So let's assume, I'm going to move on to topic number 2 now. Let's assume that you have spent, you know how like some people will be like a year and a day. I remember back in the day on YouTube, like 5 years ago, people would talk about this year and a day and 2-year concept of like learning and researching and studying and so on and so forth. And for me, it's just like experiment, but don't do it in a derogatory way, right? Like don't be eclectic with other people's traditions, but like look out there and see, how do other people do a jar spell within maybe your practice or something similar to your practice, right? How do other people out there do a money spell, right? Like these things, money spells and love spells and protection spells and casting a circle and all of these other things, they are so prevalent, specifically money spells and love spells. They're so prevalent on the internet, and they're just everywhere, that a new witch can see 50,000 different ways through 6 or 7 different magical traditions on how to do a money spell. Some of them are hoodoo, some of them are voodoo, some of them are just Wicca, some of them are plain old witchcraft, some of them are left-hand path. I mean, you get this idea in your head of all of these different paths, which leads us to the question of which path do I go down? I've learned Wicca for the structure, and it's not really my thing, or maybe it is, and you just go down that path, but we're assuming it's not. I've learned Wicca for the structure, and I have an understanding of an altar, a spell, a ritual. I have a basic understanding of this information, right? So I'm seeing other paths that are kind of similar, but very different. And I'm wondering, like, do I just stay here? Do I go down there? And that's a question that only you can answer. I can't answer that question for you. I can take the information you give me and suggest a path, but only you at the end of the day is going to know which path you take. Do you take a more traditional approach to your witchcraft? Do you take a more old school approach to your witchcraft? Do you take a more ceremonial approach to your witchcraft? Are you somebody who is big into elaborate altars and practices and long-winded rituals and spells? Are you somebody who wants simplicity? Are you somebody who wants to just do the craft when you need the craft? Are you somebody who wants to live at your altar, right? Like there are paths for all of this. Ceremonial magic is, and being an armchair occultist, that is somebody who doesn't really practice but sort of practice, I guess, they have more of an understanding of the occult more than they have a practical understanding. They have a theoretical understanding of how things work. But you can definitely mix the two, where you're like very, very versed in one particular aspect of the occult or magic in general, and you are a practitioner who is, you know, somebody who does it when you need it. Maybe you need a new job next week, and maybe 6 months later you need a new fiance, and then maybe a year later you need a house, right? There are witches out there who I would just call that kind of like basic craft. And it's not really like a path or anything. It's just doing the craft when you want to do the craft. And in terms of paths of like, do I be left hand, or do I be ceremonial, or do I be hoodoo, or do I go and get initiated into voodoo, or do I do this, or do I do that? It comes down to your research and what are you looking to get out of the craft? Why are you in the craft, right? These questions, these answers that you provide to these questions will illuminate the path to travel to attain the things that you want. If you can't answer the question, why am I in witchcraft? right? Like, why? What about the craft appeals to you? This illuminates, maybe not like right in front of you, it can, but maybe not right in front of you, but illuminates the path to take, and realize that your craft is going to evolve over the decades that you practice. You may fall out of love with one favor of maybe you start and you're very ceremonial and very ritualistic, and by the time you're 40, maybe you're just kind of throwing dirt at a bitch's door to curse her, and you're just less ceremonial and less ritualistic and just more do what needs to be done with what you have on hand, right? People's craft evolves, and sometimes it becomes less about the practice of the craft and more about the spirituality of the craft, right? So think about it like a Christian, right? Like they're not always praying 24/7, 365. Some of them might be. You might be one of those Christians sitting at home who is just praying 24/7, 365. And some people only pray when they need to. And some people start out on their Christianity path praying 24/7, 365, and then evolve into understanding how to read the Bible passages, or knowing when to reach out to God as opposed to when to reach to the Bible to find the answer, right? Like, right. So people evolve and grow and change in their craft. When it's new, when it's shiny, it's like you're involved and invested in it 24/7, 365. And then there are times where you're just like, I don't need to be at the altar all the time. I don't need to be casting spells 24/7. We've all met those witches who are casting, because they are, I don't know what they are. I don't know what their issue is. I don't know why. I've done this. You've done this. We've all been guilty of this. Let's say we need a new job. We cast a spell. It's not happening fast enough. We cast every day, every other day, every week, every whatever. We're just constantly doing the same spell, hoping for a different result. It's the definition of insanity. You're doing the same thing, hoping for a different outcome. And those are the people who need to step the fuck back and take a good long look at why they're repeating, right? And we've done this. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it, right? Maybe we needed a job. Maybe we needed that guy to stop cheating on us. Maybe we needed whatever it is that we needed. We would do the spell over and over and over again. And sometimes it calls for that. Sometimes it calls for you to repeat the spell over and over to attain the thing that you want. Right? Maybe it could be a test from the universe being like, okay, if they do this again, then they're really serious about it. And if they do it again, then we'll hand it to them. It could be one of those situations, or it could be a situation where it's like, okay, you've done this, and then the next night you come back and you do it again, and the next night you come back and you do it again. Or maybe it's a week thing or a month thing. If it's a month thing, it's not that bad. Same with like if it's a week thing. But if it's every day or twice a day and you're doing the same spell because you need the outcome and the clock is counting down, you need to step the fuck back and just look at the situation. And sometimes shit has to play out the way it's going to play out, because there is a valuable lesson to be learned there. And a lot of new witches don't take into account the lessons that are being taught to you, and they can be rough. They can be hard to accept, especially in those cases. Here's a more prominent example of one of those cases. You lost your job. Your rent is due in 2 weeks. You are constantly casting spells to get jobs, and you are handing out your resumes, but nothing's really happening. Couple interviews, but you don't have the money. You don't have anybody to reach out to. Your rent is due, and these jobs are just taking their sweet ass time because they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck that you got rent due in 2 weeks. They are going to interview their other candidates and go through their process. So you are casting, but there is something the universe or your goddess or your god or your demon or your entity or whatever the fuck it is that you work with is trying to tell you. And sometimes you need to just accept that shit is going to hit the fan, and it's how you deal with it that's really telling. And if you are the type of person who is casting and casting and casting and casting, and you're trying to avoid the situation and get around it, or use the universe to solve the situation, you're missing out on the key part of witchcraft, which is listen. You're not listening. I have a video coming at some point. I don't know when. I have videos going all the way out till like May, but, or maybe it already happened. Did this no, this video is upcoming. Yeah, this video is upcoming. I have a video where it's like mistakes people make in witchcraft, and it's a talky video, not a worky video. But in this video, we talk about how people don't listen. And when you're new to the craft, you're listening to you. You're not listening to the spirits or your guides or whatever it is that you work with. And when you're new to the craft, you don't really work with anything except your own energies, because you haven't established relationships with other entities. You haven't established relationships with spirits, or the dead, or the ancestors, or God or goddess, or whatever the hell it is that you want. You haven't established that. So when you're new to the craft and you're just starting out, the only thing you have to listen to is your gut. At that point, yourself, your higher self, your vibrations, your energy. And this is where meditation is so important, because you get in touch with yourself. Your higher, your lower, your complete self. And once you can get in touch with that and you can listen to that little voice that's in the back of your head that's like telling you shit is going to hit the fan. Have you ever had that voice where it's like, you instinctively know something is going to go sideways? You feel it days, maybe weeks before it happens. You don't know what it is. You don't know when it is. But as it gets closer, you get more of a sense of what it is. Maybe it could be your job. Maybe it could be a living situation. Maybe it could be a friendship's going to implode, right? You see well in advance, if you're listening, what is going to happen. And sometimes you're given the indication that there is a way around it, and sometimes you need to go right through it. And the going right through it part can be the really messy part. And that is the part that sometimes we need to go through in order to evolve, grow, and change, not just as witches, but as human beings, right? So that kind of answers like, what is the point of witchcraft, which is like the third topic. And the point of witchcraft is to grow as a human being on a spiritual path, right? It's the same thing with any religion. The whole point is to grow and evolve on a spiritual path as a spiritual person. You may be God's child or Allah's child, or whatever the case may be, right? You may be, in your religious or spiritual context, a spiritual entity who is following the path of a higher entity, which could be God or whatever. Or it could be a spiritual being who is ascending, right? Remember in that like early 2000s, mid 2000s, when people would talk about ascending, a higher self, vibrations, raising your vibrations, right? All of that stuff. You could be following that kind of path. And the whole point is to raise your vibrations, raise your energy, raise your self-awareness, awaken your mind, awaken your third eye, all of that fun stuff. The point of the craft is to not just attain the materialistic, shallow things you see on the internet, the curses, the hexes, the love spells, the money spells, the new car, the house. That is not the point of the craft. Those are accessories to the craft, okay? Spells and so on and so forth were originally designed not just as a means of protection or of a way of getting rid of things that you don't want, but as a way to open the path forward, light the way forward, show the way to go, the direction, the communications people had with their gods and goddesses back when. Okay, we're talking Viking ages, when they used to think, like Thor and Odin were like, actually, I don't think Thor is, I don't know, is it? Probably. Makes sense. The point that I'm getting to is when they used to believe that these gods were real and walking the earth and alive. And I don't know if we think about the Morrigan or Hecate as alive and real today like they did back then. Not the Vikings, the Celts for those particulars. Except for Hecate. Is Hecate Celtic? I don't know. I can't remember. Somebody will tell me. I don't know. I know the Morrigan is. The point that I'm making is that at some point people believed these things were real and walking the earth, and we as witches still believe they're real. But I don't know if we believe that they're walking the earth and interacting with people. If you've ever seen the show Vikings, there's mentions of gods visiting villages as other people, right? And we don't talk about that today. We don't say that Zeus was in our city and was visiting so and so, and now they're pregnant with Zeus's child, right? Like, we don't talk about that today because we consider that to be fantastical and fantasy and story and so on and so forth. But the craft for them was a means of survival. It wasn't about obtaining the latest furs and obtaining the gold and the silver. It was about victory and survival. And in the Middle Ages, that's what the craft was as well for the farmers and the little old ladies living at the edge of the village, right? It was a means of survival. Today, it's a means of capitalism. It drives capitalism forward in the sense where we're selling our Etsy shops and we're buying the witchy supplies as opposed to going out and foraging for it or finding it or whatever the case may be. Right? Like, people say, oh, well, I need sage and sage doesn't grow here, so I have to buy it on the internet. But what are the witches that used to live, or the Native Americans who used to live in your particular area? What is it that they would have used? Right? They would have used the things they had around them to influence their craft, influence the things that they could do, the spells they would do. And some people have this notion that if you don't have specific ingredients, you can't do specific spells, and that's not true at all. That's a limitation we place on ourselves because of our geographic location and the spell ingredients that we may either have around us shop-wise or growing locally, or in our grocery stores. And that's the limitation we place on ourselves, because you can still do the same money spell, the same curse, the same hex, the same whatever, but with your ingredients and your intentions and your understandings of how herbs work together, whether it be in terms of what is the word I'm looking for? Like how they blend together magically. Oh, there's a word I'm looking for and I cannot think of it, but you get the point, right? So when you're gathering your ingredients, the most simplest thing a new witch can do for their craft, regardless of what path they've chosen, but with the basic understandings of Wicca as your foundation, I would say to make incense. Burn incense, right? Incense is a powerful magic in of itself. It is the incorporation of herbs and your intentions when you're mixing those herbs together. The images that you see in your head, the manifestation that's already beginning when you're mixing together incense. And even if you're not mixing together incense for a particular purpose, you're still putting some kind of intentions into it, because maybe it smells really, really good and you're having these, I don't know, memories, sensations. You know how like smell can trigger memories about, like, from like a campfire smell can trigger memories all the way back to your like fetal blah blahs, right? So when you're smelling the incense and the images are going through your mind, it's kind of like manifesting the spell. And it's easier to manifest through the power of incense because you can manipulate the smoke. You feel the smoke. You watch the smoke form images and manifest and bring forth entities and spirits and messages. And reading incense smoke is very individualistic. There are books out there on candle magic, on how to read candles. There are books out there on how to read tarot cards. There are books out there on how to read incense smoke. There are books out there on how to read runes. But a lot of this is basic surface level, and the rest of it is really up to you. And I think that's what a lot of new witches really struggle with, is the fact that when they're just given the surface level and they don't know how to go deeper, and they're looking for the resources on how to go deeper. The Reddit posts or the Facebook posts are there books on advanced witchcraft or mastery level? Like what? Like this isn't some game. This isn't some, I don't know, video game where it's like you're a noob, you're a novice, you're a master, you're a legendary, right? Like there's none of that shit here. It's up to you to establish what witchcraft means to you, what path you walk, and how you practice. Do you work with gods or goddesses? Do you not? Do you use incense? Do you not? Do you use candles? Do you, I don't know, pray to the moon? Do you masturbate to Venus? I don't know. Whatever it is that you do, right? Your craft is your craft, but the easiest way to start your craft is to create some incense. Herbs that just, when mixed together, feel good. So for example, patchouli, I use a lot of it for the spirits. The spirits, I talk with the spirits, communicate with the spirits. Patchouli is number one in my craft. It has been talked about numerous times on my channel over the years. But what else do you like? So you like lavender as well, and you like sage. What happens if you mix those three? Like I've mixed peppermint, red sandalwood, and patchouli. You create your own original three in a way, right? So you find your own blend to make, and you burn it, and you sit and you meditate and you watch the incense smoke, and that in itself is magic. That in itself can help you manifest so many things, whether it's a curse, money spell, whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter. But what if you're somebody who's allergic to incense? Then you find your own thing. Maybe it's candles, maybe it's tarot cards, maybe it's 5 stones that you painted that you found at a river, and every time you throw them you can read the direction they've landed and what they mean and so on and so forth. I don't know, whatever it is, find the most basic thing that you connect with and connect on a deeper level with it. If it's incense smoke, meditate and visualize what it is that you want the smoke to manifest. If it's tarot cards, incorporate them into your craft. If it's, I don't know, runes, then read the runes in a way that makes sense with you as opposed to how they make sense to a book, right? Does that make sense? It's about finding yourself. That's what you're doing. And I brought up incense because everybody burns them. Most everybody. All the witches here on YouTube burn them that I've seen. Incense is really easy because you can buy it from the dollar store. Buy it from anywhere. You can go to a grocery store and buy some spices and mix them together. Well, maybe not spices, but, you know, like herbs, and either dry them or buy them dried and mix them together. If you look at some of the seasoning mixes that don't have like salts or anything in them, like they're just like, for example, like thyme, rosemary, sage, right? Just those 3, that's like an incense right there. And if it doesn't have like salts or anything else in it, then you could easily just sprinkle a bit of that on a coal Coals are easy to buy if you go to your local smoke shop, which is like where they sell bongs and shisha, right? If you go in there, they'll sell coals by the pack for like $5. So it's relatively cheap to get incense up and going if you don't have any money, or a lot of money. If you have more money, then there are places like New Age Imports where you can buy incense in bulk, and you can buy resins and stuff like that. And then you've got Monterey Bay Spice Company and other herb places where you can buy herbs in bulk. But again, those are places where if you have the disposable income, and we're talking like a couple $100, because it's not cheap. New Age Imports is very cheap. It's just a minimum of $100 before they will ship it to you. Monterey Bay Spice Company, depending on the types of herbs you're buying and the quantity and how much at a time, you could be looking at a couple $100. Especially if you're going for stuff like Osha root or dragon's blood, or patchouli, which sell out quickly. Like they list it at a certain date, and then if you're not there watching, it's usually gone, because these are bulk places. You're buying in bulk. They're meant for the stores that would buy from these places in bulk. The other thing along with incense is oils and teas, right? Potions, tinctures, stuff like that. So making an oil is another really simple thing that a new witch can do. Making a tea is also another really simple thing that a new witch can do. First of all, for your teas, make sure that you can mix the herbs together and make sure you're not allergic and all of that stuff, right? Because now you're ingesting shit. I mean, do the same thing for the incense because you're inhaling the smoke, but right, make sure you can burn this shit. And the stuff that you want to make into a tea, make sure that you can drink that shit. Not just that the herbs aren't poisonous, but that you're not going to have allergic reactions and so on and so forth. But teas are another fascinating way. I used to make tea like this. This is how I used to do it. I was a big fan of the old school Charmed. So you remember when you would see them in the kitchen with the cauldron and they're putting herbs in and they're stirring it? Yeah, I would do that with tea. Oh, that was so fun. So the way that I would do it is I would boil, or at least get the water simmering, and then start adding the herbs and putting the intentions in one pinch of herbs at a time, putting the intentions in, and so on and so forth. And that was fun because it was like being over a cauldron of bubbling water, and you're putting ingredients in, right? I mean, you're just making a tea and it takes like 5 minutes, if that. But I don't know, you throw on an episode of Charmed and now you're just making tea left, right, and center. And sometimes you're just sitting there watching and your table is full of all these new teas that you've made. And I remember my earliest videos when I was making them for YouTube, I would do the same thing. I would make all of these different incense blends and teas and so on and so forth, and oils. And the thing to be careful of, though, is that herbs and oils go rancid after a while. So it's fun to sit there and make 60,000 different types of incense, which won't smell different if you burn them. But teas, if you don't store them properly, they lose their flavor and they can kind of taste a little off. A good example of that is hibiscus leaves, like the red hibiscus leaves. If they sit, even if they're in a jar and they're in the like a cold, not damp, but cold, dark room, they will lose their flavor. You'll take out a hibiscus leaf, and this is a perfect way to test a hibiscus leaf if you're not allergic. Take one out and eat it. If it tastes more sour than a fresh hibiscus leaf that's been dried, then it's past its expiration date, and you don't want to make a tea out of that because it's going to taste nasty. But you can still use it to make oils and incense, because the herb itself, it's lost its flavor, but it hasn't lost its potency, if that makes any sense. If that makes any sense. But these are like really simple things that you can do to start out on the craft. You don't need to get super advanced and have all the tools and the trade and the crystals and the so on and so forth. You're just exploring. That's what you're doing. That's what the craft should be when you're starting out, is you're exploring. You're exploring yourself. You're exploring things that you like. You're exploring things that bring you joy and excitement and make you want to dive a little deeper. And maybe you do, and maybe you end up making oils for all kinds of different uses and incorporating them into lotions and soaps that you can give away to your friends who might be stressed or trying to find a job or looking for love or whatever the case may be. These are tools of the trade, which leads us into the next topic. Because when we talk about tools of the trade, we talk about cauldrons and athames and pentacles and fuck all that nonsense. These are your tools of the trade, your exploration, your desire to learn more, your curiosity, your gut instincts, your ability to listen to the guides or the spirits or the entities or whatever the hell it is that you work with, to just feel at ease, at peace. Like, this is where you belong. Like, this is, you could do this forever. You could do this for days, right? And that's oils, teas, and incense for me. That's because it's basic and it's simple and it's something that brings me joy and brings me a sense of fulfillment, and it's magical, and it allows me to meditate, especially if I've got like a TV show on or something. It allows me to meditate. It allows me to just kind of zone out a little bit. Your book of shadows could also be a tool of the trade, because it's a place where you record your thoughts, your emotions, your spells, your rituals. It's more than just a place where you store your spells and rituals and your oils and your teas and your incense. It's a place where you store your recipes, not just for witchcraft. I'm talking cooking, your cooking recipes. They don't have to be magical. Just, it's a place where you store your cooking recipes. It's a place where you store your thoughts. It's a place where you rant about the bitch who lives down the street. It's a place where you put the spell that you use to stop the bully at school from picking on your kid. It's the place where you cry out your tears about how you think your husband's cheating on you, but it turns out that he's not, and you're just this insecure, broken person, and you come to those realizations. It's your therapy, it's your best friend, and it's your tool. And don't just record shit for the sake of recording shit. Like, oh, I got to put the moon phases in here. I got to put the herbs. I got to put the spices. I got to put this. I got to put that. You don't. You can do what the fuck you want, but you don't. You should treat it like a confidant. A confidant who you can flip the pages back and go backwards and see the growth. And there are people out there who are so adamant about keeping their books very specific ways, very organized, very this, very that. But, and maybe it does for you, but for me it doesn't. So I'm just going to put it this way. That doesn't show growth. That shows organizational skills. And maybe you date them. And maybe that shows you growth. But for me, having an unorganized book where it's just front to back, your thoughts, your emotions, your dreams, your hatreds, your curses, your money spells, your desperations, your tears, your heartache, your friendships, that shows growth as a witch. Your books don't have to be one spell after the next ritual. Put some humanity in them. We make fun of people who paint color in their books, coloring book witches. But it shows growth. It does. Those are your tools of the trade. when you communicate with things like entities or whatever, spirits, I'm going to use spirits as this example. When you communicate with spirits, you have all the tools of the trade up to this point. You have the ability to listen. You have the ability to process and understand that this thing that is speaking to you, this universe, God, goddess, whatever, this thing that is speaking to you, you can hear it. And sometimes it's cryptic, and sometimes it's a riddle, and sometimes it doesn't make any sense until it's already hit you in the fucking head. And sometimes they don't fucking speak to you until after the damn thing has happened, and then they try and come in with the "I told you so's." And maybe you weren't listening again, right? Maybe you weren't listening when they were trying to do the "I told you so's." And sometimes they just let you go through the shit and then come in afterwards and be like, "This is your lesson." But they don't tell you this is your lesson. They give you some cryptic bullshit that you're supposed to then figure out, "Oh, this is your lesson." In my craft, the way the spirits work and the tools that I have at my disposal in order to work with them is they are demanding little bitches. They are. It used to be a very structured relationship. Do this when we tell you to, do that when we tell you to, mix these together and do this spell to attain this. Nowadays, it's very much they pop up when shit is going to go sideways, or when shit isn't flowing properly down fucking pipes into your sewage stream centers. When you're stuck and you can't get yourself out of it because you've put yourself here and you're just so fucking blind and you're going around in circles, and the spirits or the entities, whatever you're working with, are standing there and they're like, "Oh my God, this person's fucking stupid." And they just step in and be like, "Go this way." Sometimes they'll do that. Again, this is all from my craft. Yours may be different, but these are just my tips that I can give you. What is it? Did you see a bird? Squeaky creature. Anyways, I don't even know if you even heard the cat meowing, but communicating with spirits or entities is all about listening. Because you need to reach out using whatever it is that you use. Some people like candles. Some people, like they light a candle and they call out to Hecate. Hecate! Hecate! However you call out to Hecate. Some people burn incense and call out to their entities. Some people, like myself, light white candles to guide the spirits and burn patchouli. Some people bless objects to attract spirits. Maybe they give them homes, maybe they trap them to work with them, whatever. And when I say spirits, I really mean anything. Although I don't think anyone's trying to trap the Morgon in a crystal, but you do you. For me, it's patchouli and white candles. Then my house is full of spirits and I can see them. And the way that I see them is different than the way other people might see them. I don't see faces. I live by 3 graveyards. Okay. So they're walking distance. So it is not difficult for these fuckers to get to my house. But when I light these candles and I burn the incense and sometimes I give an offering, sometimes I don't. But when I give an offering and they start to appear, it's like these shapeless, formless entities. But throughout the rest of my house, it's like there are white pillar candles everywhere. But there's only on my altar, are there 5 of them. But throughout the rest of my house, like here in front of all of this, there would be candles, right? But it's like, it's what you see and what you feel. And I feel their energy and their presence, and I visualize that they're here, and some of them are probably ancestors, and some of them are just spirits of the dead. Some of them are spirits of the land, spirits of nature, and they protect me and they guide me, and they're demanding and they're sassy and they're mean, and they're spirits, and communicating with them is about listening, because it's not like they're going to say, hey, you're going in the wrong direction. They're going to do things, and I can't explain it to you because it wouldn't make sense coming from my craft. You'll understand what I'm talking about when it happens to you, but they're going to be signs that you'll probably miss. Indications that you should have probably paid attention to. Have you ever looked back on a situation and you're like, holy shit, I should have paid attention to that. I should have seen that a mile away. That's what I'm talking about. The things that only you understand that you should have seen in that particular instance a mile away. And sometimes, because we are human, we're blind. But as witches, we need to open our eyes and be acutely aware of not just our physical surroundings, but our spiritual surroundings as well. And we need to be able to listen and communicate with the things that we work with. And some of us don't work with anything. Some people are like, I don't work with God. I don't work with dead people. I don't work with anything. It's all me. Okay, that's fine. But you need to listen to yourself then. Oh, I listen to myself all the time. But you didn't see shit coming a mile away and slapped you in the face. And again, we're human. Sometimes we literally miss the shit. And sometimes it is so obvious that our best friend who was standing beside us the entire time was like, I saw that bus coming a mile away, and now you just goddamn blood and guts all over the floor, right? So, but you weren't listening to your friend who was probably telling you to get the hell out of the way. You weren't listening to yourself who was trying to tell you, slow down or get out of the way or do this to get around it. Have you ever had those times? Maybe you're sitting there and you're watching TV and you get this feeling that you need to do a certain type of working, a certain type of magical working. And you're sitting there and you can see the spell ingredients, the way it should be done, everything. I get that. Have you ever then said, you know, I'm going to do that tomorrow? But tomorrow, what you don't know is that tomorrow's too fucking late. That's the listening part that I'm talking about. That's the communication part. That's a vital part of communication, is to shut the fuck up and listen. Right? So you're a new witch who has learned Wicca. You've learned the foundations. You don't like Wicca. So you've chosen a different path, right? You've fucked around with some incense and manifestation, meditation, made some oils, drank some teas, developed your own tools of your own craft, and established, or maybe you didn't, some kind of communication with some kind of entity, or maybe you have established a deeper communication with yourself. 1 second. Miss Pepe! Dear cat sitting out there just fucking meowing, because that's what she does. She just meows. Listen, bitch. Anyways, so you've established your communication, but more importantly, regardless of whether it's with an entity or whatever, it needs to be with yourself. You need to have a relationship with yourself. You need to develop that relationship with self. I've talked about this in my previous live video, where it's like self is important. Communication with self is important. If you don't have a connection with self, then you don't have a connection with the craft. Because self leads to the earth, leads to the spirits, leads to all of it, right? You need to awaken yourself. What is your first spell? You've been reading about them and learning about them, and you have been screwing around, like I said, with oils and teas and incense and forming connections and exploring the earth and just slaughtering A very meow meows cat. I've only got 2 topics, Miss Pippies. Sip it. 2 more topics. And I'll give you whatever the fuck you want. Give me a minute. You're not starving. You've got food. She's developed this thing where she is bored. And what do people who are bored like to do? Eat. That's what she wants. She wants food. She's got food. She's got all this food. She wants to eat. She gets so fat. She gets so fat. So, anyways, your first spell. What do you do? Do you do a money spell? Do you do a blessing? Do you do a circle? Do you like incorporate what you've been learning into your first spell? What do you need the spell to do? What is the purpose of you doing a spell? Why do you need to do a spell? Well, I saw someone. I don't care about what you saw on the internet. Why do you need to do a spell? What is the spell going to bring to you? Can the sirens shut the fuck up? Bitches better be dead. Oh! What do you want? Tell the internet what you want. Yes. I know. What do you want? Look, you're so fat. Look how fat she is. She's so fat. You're so fat. I know, I love you. She doesn't like to be picked up. Okay, down you go. I'll feed you after. Anyhow. Your first spell. We were talking about that. What do you need the spell to do? What is the purpose of the spell? I need money. Why do you need money? Well, I don't have a job. Okay, that's fair. Let's do a spell to get a job. Now, I've talked about that. I'm not going to go over the whole mundane aspect again, because if you have been on the Witchy Show for any amount of time and watched any live video and was able to get past all of the craziness, then you will understand that there is a whole mundane aspect to doing spells. And if you don't know what that mundane aspect is, then honey, you need to back up and figure out how a spell works, because it's not going to do the work for you. It's not going to and done, right? Like, that's not how this works. You need to put in the effort in order for the spell to work. And I'm not talking magically. I'm talking muggle shit, right? Fuck it. I'll just give you a really lowdown on what the mundane is. In relation to the job, you're going to be applying for jobs. You're going to be handing your resume out. You're going to treat that like a full-time job. You're going to do that. You're going to hand out probably like 20 resumes a day, every single day. Handing out resumes, 10 to 20, I would say at least, 5 days a week. And you're going to do the spell. I would do the spell after you've applied for a few jobs, and then I would do the spell to attain the job. Because A, you're showing the universe that, hey, I'm putting in the effort, now I'm asking for your help, and I'm continuing to put in the effort. That is how witchcraft magic works. You put in the effort, you do the spell, you continue to do the effort. There are instances where it's different than that, obviously. Every situation is going to be different. If you're cursing a bitch because she's being annoying, well, then you're just getting rid of her, right? It's not always mundane, spell, mundane, or spell, mundane, or mundane, spell. Sometimes it's just spell. Again, it's dependent on the situation. And some people say don't do magic when you're angry. Don't do magic when you're sad. Don't do magic when you're pissed off. Don't do magic when you're this. Don't do magic when you're that. It depends. Obviously, as a new witch, the thing that you need to understand is the one thing that original Charmed, got right. Your powers are tied to your emotions. The spells you cast, the rituals you do, the way you invoke an entity is all tied to your emotions. If you're pissed off and you're trying to do a money spell, that shit could backfire. in one way or another, okay? If you're pissed off and you're doing a curse and all you intend for this bitch to do is get fired, she could get fired and hit by a bus, right? Whereas you just intended for her to get fired. Now she's hit by a bus. How do you feel about that? You feel good? Maybe you do. Celebrate. Who knows? But your emotions can be used in your spell work. When I'm doing a curse, I need to be pissed. I need to be angry. Because why do I want to waste my magical energy on some dumb skank who either lives on a different continent or, you know, south of the border or wherever? Why waste my energy on her if she or him if they're just doing it for attention? But if it's really something that you're pissed and you're angry about and you just want to watch them fucking burn, then, right, use your emotions. Always be in touch with your emotions, okay? Witchcraft can help you balance your emotions as well if you're a very erratic person. I'm not talking bipolar, okay? If you're bipolar, honey, you need therapy and medication. But if you're just somebody who's a crazy old crone, queen, whatever the fuck you want to call me, just don't call me late for dinner, on the internet, then, you know, witchcraft is the type of thing that over time can help you just kind of, I don't know, fucking chill out, mellow out, just balance your emotions and all of that shit. And the last thing that I have for you is, what time is it? Oh, got 3 minutes. The last thing that I've got for you is to establish your intentions. Okay? Let's go through this list one last time. Can you see the list? There you go. You're like, we can't read that. That's fine. The path that you've chosen, okay, dictates. No, it doesn't dictate. It helps you understand the point of your craft. Sort of. Because you have to understand why you're in witchcraft in order to pick the path, which then kind of, well, it illuminates the path that you should choose, which then leads you down your own path of self-discovery. Okay? We have the power of incense, oils, and teas. It's the most basic thing in witchcraft that you can start out with. Okay? You've got your tools of the trade that you've established, the things that you keep on your altar or around you that help you manifest energy. You've seen how messy my altar can be. You've communicated with self, higher self, lower self, spirits, entities, whatever it is that you want to work with, but you have an understanding of how to listen and pay attention to the things around you. And you've attempted to put together your first spell, whatever it is it's for, but now you need to establish your intentions. You've always seen me in my videos talk about putting intentions in, and it becomes this, like, I don't know, movie. This, like, fucking cinematic movie of nature and music and editing and witchcraft. And you don't see intentions. You don't hear intentions. You don't really, like, a new witch watching wouldn't know what the intentions are. What are intentions? The intentions are what you want to happen, but as clear as possible. Don't use things like, I want, please help me attain, I beg of thee. Like, don't use shit like that. Be direct. I have a job. It pays me every 2 weeks. I can afford my rent and my car payments and my food. That's your petition if you're looking for a job, right? You are direct and to the point. You're not some long-winded airbag like I've been for the last hour, talking about nonsense to no one who gives a fuck, okay? You are being direct and to the point. You are saying, I have, not I want, not I need, not pretty please, I have. Because you are establishing that that is yours. And you're not saying, I have this job at company X, unless you're doing a spell for that company and you're at least in the interview process, I would say when you're applying for jobs that I have a steady job, full-time steady job. Or if you have a business, I have lots of customers. When you start saying, I want, I need, pretty please, you are giving your power away. And witchcraft is about taking your power back or developing a sense of power. And when you say, I have, this is mine, you are saying to the universe that I'm a confident bitch and my magic's gonna work. You would help me. Or you're saying to whatever, right? Some people speak their intentions. Some people write their intentions down. Some people carve them in candles. Some people write them on a petition and burn them. Some people make sigils. Some people, right? Like, it's up to you to establish how you want to execute the spell with the intentions that you're putting in. And it's imperative to know that when you ask yourself, why am I doing this spell? You are already putting in a sense of intentions. You're already giving intentions. Like the other day, I had to curse a bitch on the internet because this bitch going off on the Instagrams. So I cursed the bitch. And there's a video coming for that later, probably end of April. But what was I saying now? Oh, yes. When I was gathering the ingredients for the curse, I already had the vision of the bitch in my head. I had the vision of what I wanted to happen to her. I had the words. I had the thoughts. I knew explicitly, I could see it in my mind's eye that this bitch was going to burn in 7 different ways from 8 different Sundays on 9 different planes of hell. Okay? I could see it. And that's what you want when you're doing your magics, is you want to see. Don't just say I want. No. You don't say I want. Don't just say I have a spell. A job. A spell. Yes, I have the spell. I'm doing a spell to do a spell. You can do that. You can do a spell directly after to make that spell be successful. It's called a booster spell. You know, what the fuck? Yes. You boost, you do another spell beside the spell that you're doing that is currently working its magic, whether it's pop it, whether it's jar magic. If it's a jar magic, I would do it on top. If it's like a candle magic, you've got a candle burning down, you could do another candle beside it that is amplifying the power, right? You've seen me do this a few times where I've got a central candle in the center, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 candles, right? Or 5 candles around it. And sometimes it's on top of a sigil. I'm boosting, amplifying that spell. And it's a little more, quote unquote, advanced. But all you're essentially doing in your second spell is just saying boost, amplify, right? That's all you're doing. Your primary spell is your intentions, is I have a job, I have a man, whatever the fuck case may be, right? And you're not just saying it for the sake of saying it, because then you're just going through the motions. Don't go through the motions. Don't just sit there and be like, I have a job and I've lit this bay leaf on fire and boom, done. No. Visualize, bitch. Visualize. Okay, I want you to see yourself at that McDonald's or Walmart or office job or whatever the fuck it is that you want. I want you to see yourself interacting with the staff members. Well, I've never been in this office building. I fucking make it up, bitch. You've been in office buildings before. I'm sure you can figure it out, right? So you visualize yourself physically incorporated into the company. That's how you solidify your intentions. And then beside that spell, if you have the energy left, right, you can do another spell to amplify it. Sometimes you don't need to. Most of the time you don't. If you're doing candle magic and the flame is burning really low, there's a few things that could be going on. One, the way the candle was made was shit, and this is just what you're stuck with. Two, it could be magical, right? This could be something blocking. So maybe you do a spell beside the one you're doing to open the road, right? You want to do an unblocking spell. Again, you can already see the intentions that are a part of these types of spells. Maybe the road opener spell is also like burning really low. So now you've got these two spells. So you do one beside that one to boost the road opener, which then works and then starts to open the road, right? See, all of this is like connected, right? And it can take a while because spells don't manifest overnight. That's the other thing. People need to realize that your magic is not going to happen overnight. I don't care if you need rent in 2 weeks. It might happen. I mean, it's 2 weeks out. It might happen. Magic can take that long. But if you needed rent tomorrow, bitch, it's not going to happen. Okay? There are times, and I have had this happen, and I'm sure you've had this happen, where you'll do a spell, and you're like, I need this to happen right fucking now. And right when the spell finishes, you get the phone call or the thing that you needed to happen happens, right? There are times where that does happen. But the vast majority of the time, when we are so desperate and so blind to the thing that's right in front of us, the reason why the thing is happening the way it's happening, we can't see, so we just blindly cast. And that's the other thing you don't want to do, is you don't want to blindly cast, because then you're just throwing intentions out there. You're just saying, I really, really need this. I have this. This is my job. Like, oh my God, give this to me. I have it. It's mine, right? Like, you're so desperate, and you're just calling on everything that you have. I've been there. You've been there. We've all been there. Don't fucking lie to me. Don't say you've never been desperate in your life, because we've all been desperate, and we've all been at the altar, and we have all been calling on the Morrigan, Clonic, and Boone, and Dentalion, and this demon, and that angel, and this person, and that thing, and the ancestors, and the spirits, and we've got all this magical shit flying around, and it doesn't manifest for 6 months. Because you need to just chill the fuck out, right? So take it one spell at a time. Do your job spell and see how that goes. Wait a week. So you might lose your place and have to move into your parents' basement. So you might, I don't know, not have food for a couple of days. Food bank people, right? Like, whatever the case may be, just realize that when you've done your spell, when you put your intentions in those situations or in similar situations, that you've done everything you can. And you should be able to sit back and watch it manifest. For example, let's go back to that job thing. You've handed out 35 resumes this week, 5 a day. You've done the spell on Sunday, like the following Sunday, right? Or that Sunday. Like Monday through Friday, you handed out. Sunday, you did the spell. And then another Monday through Friday, you handed out more jobs. So then the weekend comes and you're sitting there and you're probably getting a little desperate because maybe next week you've got some bill due or whatever. You've done everything you can. You've handed out about 70 resumes in 2 weeks, and you've done a spell. That's it. There's nothing else you can do. You've done everything you can. You have to have faith. That's the other thing that's after. Establish your intentions. That's not on my list. See? There's establish intentions. Okay? Establish. The fuck does that say? Establish your intentions. But there's no have faith. Trust. Trust in the process, Tubies. If you know that you've done everything you can, if you can physically say to yourself, like, look in a fucking mirror and look yourself in the eyeballs and with a straight face, if you can say to yourself, I have done everything I can in this situation, magic, mundane, everything, then there's nothing for you to do but leave it up to whatever it is that you work with. Universe, spirits, demons, gods, whatever. It's all you can do. It's just like Christianity. You pray, and you can only pray and pray and pray so hard. And you can only read so many Bible passages. And all you're going to end up doing is just going around in circles and confusing yourself and digging yourself into a deeper hole in the situation. Because if you're a witch, you're casting all the time. If you're a religious person, maybe you're praying all the time, and you don't even know what you're praying for anymore. You don't even know what you're casting for anymore. You just know you're in a really desperate situation and you're trying to get out of it. And that's not helpful. It's not to you, not to the situation, not to the people involved. Just do what you can do and leave the rest in capable hands. Trusting and knowing and believing and having faith that not only will it manifest, but that you've also done everything you can in this instance. And if it doesn't manifest, it's not that you did it wrong. It's that it might not be the time. There's something else that you have to do. There's some other thing, roadblock, whatever. And sometimes you'll just cast and cast and cast and cast. And you're trying to break through the roadblock, trying to make those spells work. And a lot of times it's a you thing. It's you! You are your own worst enemy. You are holding yourself back. Again, it goes all the way back to you not listening. Okay? So these, because it's like 12 o'clock, my time. I don't know what time it is for you. I don't care. But I've been here for an hour, and I gotta go away now because I got other shit to do. I got 2 more videos to edit, free to put up on YouTube. Yeah, shit like that. But these are my tips. You're new, you're shiny, you're bright and squirmy, and you want to learn everything. You want to be a witch. That's how you do it. Right? That's how you do it. Okay? I love all your faces. Till next time.